We'll find out if our next guest can go to an employment tribunal and try and grab 55 million euro for any reason. Because, it's that time where it is 9:30 on a Friday. We find out about draws going to wins. We find out about the playoff mix. We find out about anything going on between the sticks, the proverbial sticks, the ears, the mind of a mogul in training. It's time for the Friday Free Kick with our buddy Michael Parkhurst. Cap, have you ever gone to an employment tribunal to try and get 55 million euro from your previous employers?
I haven't, but I would welcome the opportunity.
Yeah, we were discussing Kylian Mbappe and where he is now still apparently angry to the point to where I feel like he's doing something like this. It's like the Veruca Salt bit, in the Willy Wonka. It's just one of these. He's in the corner. He's kind of stomping up and down. I want my 55 million euro. First world problems. First world problems this morning. Absolutely. So how is the life of the mogul in training? Let's start off with Rhode Island FC and what is going on in the street fight that is the Eastern Conference in USL Championship.
Yeah, not a great weekend for us last weekend. I drove over to Pittsburgh and we played probably our worst game of the season. I'm not going to correlate the two things. But yeah, it's a tough place to play and a tough pitch to play on. And we didn't do a good enough job adapting there. So we got what we deserved in that game. And so we're still in the thick of it, and we're headed out to California to play Orange County this weekend. So all is fine.
So are you catching the flight to a championship stadium in Irvine, California?
I am not.
Well, I mean, because you can stay at home and kick back and watch it, and not have to deal with weather or flight delays or anything like that. You can have your own Rhode Island FC party at the Casa de Parkhurst.
Totally. And John, we've had amazing weather up here. And
until
it's been so nice. And sitting there in Pittsburgh, I had pants and a sweatshirt on, and I was shivering. So cold. Well, unbelievable.
I mean, you're right up against the river, and you sit there and the trains go by, and you're sitting there going, man, if I had a soccer ball, I'd like to try and kick it into the river and over the train, or see if it could go into the train, and the train just kind of takes it by. And maybe it would mask the yelling of Bob Lilly at any given moment.
Yeah. But anyways, no, it's all good. We could have used some help from Tampa Bay midweek. They lost to Birmingham, so that didn't help us. But such is life. You got to do it yourself sometimes.
Okay, so that'll be my entry point this week. When it comes to mentoring and reminding mentees that, yes, I'm here for you, your mentors and your guideposts are there for you. Sometimes you do have to do it yourself. Do you have to have those reminders and those conversations with mentees about sometimes I can only get you so far. You've got to take it that final step? Definitely.
And some of it is even a bit of a step down as far as just maturity, right, as a human being. So it's different steps. Like, okay, now you're in, middle school or high school. And so it's not mom and dad's job to get you ready to go to practice. You should be ready to go to practice and have all the things and have your water and get your snacks and do all these things. And that's on you now, right? You're old enough, and that's on you. And so, yeah, same thing kind of when you go up the level, right? And now you talk about, confidence and dealing with things and just looking out for yourself. That's on you, especially as you go off to college or, if you're lucky enough to ever play professionally, right? It's like you need to look out for yourself, and you need to make sure you're taking ownership of your journey, because no one cares more about your journey, or shouldn't care more about your journey than yourself, other than maybe your mom.
Yes,
they probably care. More.
Yes. No. Well, and then let me ask about generational divides and disconnects and things like that. Do you find that folks that are our age care about it and approach it differently and taking things into our own hands versus the younger folks, the folks that you mentee and maybe folks that you see at Rhode Island or in college or anything like that? Do we handle things differently now when it comes to taking care of business ourselves?
Yes, and I feel like some of it lands on my generation, and how we're parenting
Mm-hmm.
and we're enabling. And, I think that maybe it's because we had to do a little bit more as we were younger, that now, we just want to put things on a platter for our kids and make it easy and help them out and all these things. And sometimes we're doing them a disservice by doing too much, and then they just become reliant on us and dependent. And I see it in a lot of kids, and just maturity wise, like they're capable of so much more, and we're limiting them sometimes. And even out on the soccer field, it's the same thing sometimes. And I know there's a fine line between encouragement and tough love. So it kind of all goes hand in hand. And for everyone's different, though, as we know.
Well, and at the same time, you mentioned that, and there's always that mindset from parents, grandparents, what have you, about making it better for our kids, making it easier for them than it was for ourselves. And then that runs into that issue that you're talking about where parents, they want to make it easier. They want to make it better. They want to make it, they want to make it a better place for their kids. But there's that line about, they've got to want, there's that want to, they've got to want to at least meet you halfway in that regard where, okay, yeah, great. You want to do this as a parent, but the kid can't learn if everything's laid out for them, and it makes things, I would say, difficult because they don't get that real world on the job training that they're supposed to get as they get older to experience these things that they're supposed to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we want to do and set our kids up as best as we can, no doubt about it. But yeah, I feel like sometimes we need to let them fail a little bit and figure things out on their own. And I've gotten to that point now with my kids, and it's tough because you don't want to like see them fail or see them struggle. But like one small example is every day when we come home from school, the kids need to take their water bottles and their lunches over to the sink, and I'll wash it in the evening, no problem. My son can't even do that. And so now I'm done. If it doesn't get there by the time I'm washing the dishes, he washes it himself. And like, I don't feel bad, and he needs to do that. And if in the morning he's rushing out of the house to run to the bus, then so be it. But I'm done with it. And, it's just a small little thing. But there's just so much, same thing with going to practice. Like, we will be late. I'd rather be a little late to the practice and him be upset about that than do his water for him or find his, I don't know, you name it.
Find the shin guards that are hanging around someplace.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned how difficult that is as a parent. I mean, does the mentor come out a little bit in that process, at least mentally for you at the same time where, okay, I see what's happening here. You can almost kind of detach and look at it from a different perspective. Like you get to look at it from up high or something, like an all 22 for football coverages. Okay, so I see what's happening here. I can detach. I understand what's going on. I can help my kids as both a mentee and a parent by doing things and looking at it differently. Do you ever have those out of body moments where you get to analyze yourself here?
Yes, I do. And I completely, and it furthers my certainty of why kids need mentoring, because they don't listen to their parents. Right? There's some, and my kids listen to me, and they're good kids and whatever. But when it comes to this, and I see it all the time with my own kids, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I speak to kids, their parents pay me to do this, like I'm good at it, and yet here we are, my own children, and they are stubborn as rocks, and I cannot talk to them about what I know and I know can help them. So yes, it is out of body and it's out of mind as well, John. Just mind blowing, that is.
Well, so then, when you see what's going on, do you and the boss kind of sit there and it's like, okay, we see this happening. All right, you kind of brace yourself for it, knowing that it's inside the Parkhurst four walls that this is happening, and you're getting to have the mentor looking at the parent, looking at the mentee, kind of. It's almost like this 3-step process. Do you kind of brace yourself for it? And you're like, yeah, okay, we know it's coming.
Yep. No, totally. And my wife has done a really good job of, like, she can detach and just walk away and remove herself and everything. And
But how hard is
she,
that?
oh, she's learned it over the years, though, because she was around the kids so much more when they were younger than I was. Obviously, I was playing and traveling and busy a lot. And so for me, I'm going through that where I'm like, I'm getting better now, but so many times I would just get so mad and so frustrated. And, then we're just fighting and yelling at each other. And, you're doing it because you want and you think you can help them. But again, you're not helping them if it's not going in their ears and, into their brain. And so it's just like, hey, you need to step back, let them figure it out. And, hopefully that'll get to them, because I've gotten to that point even with my daughter with shoulder exercises. She's dislocated her shoulder. She's had some trouble, yet she loves softball. And I say, well, if you love softball, you'd love doing your shoulder exercises, because if you don't do your shoulder exercises, you might not be able to do softball. Right. And that's the ownership part. And she's got to own it if she wants to play softball. And it's the same thing with a lot of the kids that we talk about. Right. If you want to continue to play soccer at a higher level, then you have to learn to embrace some of these things that you don't want to do. I didn't want to go running in the off season when it's cold outside and get ready for preseason. I didn't want to do that. But I did it because I knew that it needed to be done. And that's why I don't miss playing.
Because I can either A, sleep in, or B, go play golf and not have to worry about it. I mean, this seems like, and I am not a parent. I have parents and pets. That is the extent of my parenting at the moment. It's a different kind of parenting, but it is not like you, and it is not like others. And I can sense that there are times of frustration. There are times where you get to see them learn, you get to see the light come on and all that kind of stuff. But you mentioned enabling. And I wanted to ask, how much is enabling happening more today than it has previously? I mean, because with our parents and our grandparents, it was like, I walked in the snow uphill both ways in bare feet going to school, and they would always give you those lessons, and you had to kind of sort it out yourself. And then when you didn't sort it out yourself, then they kind of came down on you a little bit, and then they came down on you until you got it right. And it was just a different kind of, it was tough love that forced those kinds of lessons. Is it softer? How much softer is it now, where we had the tough love of our parents and grandparents, and then maybe a little softer, then maybe a little softer? Is that the progression that you're seeing here? Is it?
Yeah.
Am I off? I mean, just because of
No.
my thought of my grandparents, where, I mean, I had, full disclosure, I had a grandfather who was Army Air Corps, Battle of Britain, invasion of North Africa. He was in the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA. And he would always tell the funny stories about what it was like to serve for his country in World War II. He would never tell the really nasty ones. But for him, it literally was like the way of the ruler. And if you weren't getting anything done, if you weren't listening, the ruler's coming out, and it's like, bang, it's to try to get you into shape. And he knew that it was time to stop hitting me with a ruler when I broke the ruler in half. You remember those old, the old 18 to 24 inch rulers that had like the metal rod across the top that kept it in place?
Mm-hmm.
He popped me with it once when I was, I think, like 12 or 13, and I snapped the ruler in half, but you still had the metal bar for the full 24 inches. And we looked at each other and we're like, and he started laughing, and I'm like, yep, that's the last time that's going to happen. He finally had that moment where it's like, okay, I have to think of different ways to discipline. That was their way of doing it with our grandparents, at least with my grandparents. And then because of what you saw, it's almost like having a player's coach and a disciplinarian. It's like I had the disciplinarian, and then my parents became the player's coach, and then you're trying to figure out the third way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where we are these days with this current generation of parents and stuff. Are we at the level of that third head coach where it's not the disciplinarian or the player's coach, and you've got to try to figure out how to navigate it? Is that where we are?
I think that's where a lot of us are trying to figure out where is that, and where do we live there in that area, and how do we get there? Because obviously times have changed, right? We're not getting hit at school anymore like my dad used to, and
take the kid behind the door and have the teacher sit there, and you hear the noise, and then the kid comes back out to class. Okay, yeah, that happened.
Exactly.
That happened in my school, man.
Yeah, I believe it. And so, and obviously a lot of these changes are for the good, and for the betterment. But how do we still
how do we progress?
How do we progress and make our kids like strong enough to, and by strong enough, I mean like mentally strong enough to, get through tough times and get through adversity and figure things out and mature. Right. I don't want my kids being the ones that go to college, go through 4 years, and then are like, I wonder what I want to do. Right. And it's like, we need to, take some responsibility here and figure things out and grow up a little bit. Right. It's like, that's where I think like the maturity level, I think as time has gone, we're taking longer and longer to mature. It seems like,
you got to come. You almost have to drag them forward sometimes. It's like, it's okay,
And I think that is hand in hand a little bit with the enabling and, trying to make it better for our kids than it was for us. Mm-hmm. And, which is great. And obviously a lot of us have more means than when we did when we were little, which is great. But just figuring out, within that, how do we still help our kids be ready for the real life? Because if there's one thing I tell every single mentee, it's life isn't fair. It is not. So how are you going to deal with it?
What was the most recent example of, and obviously you don't have to say who the mentee was, but what was the most recent example that you had to remind somebody that life wasn't fair? Could have been a mentee, could have been somebody close, could have been a family friend. When was the last time that you had to mention that to somebody?
I had a kid who is a freshman in high school, and he got blamed for a goal that they gave up in a high school game. He's playing on varsity. And I said, hey, dude, this is how it's going to be, right? Where right or wrong, younger players are going to get blamed for things that's not on them.
Yep.
And you need to be able to realize and figure out, okay, what can I take from this that's helpful, and what do I need to ignore, and just know like, hey, unfortunately, this is part of the process. And, I'm going to listen, but I'm not going to necessarily let this affect me and take it in so much that I'm going to be placing all this blame on myself and letting it affect my play. So that was it was like, hey, dude, life is not fair in this situation, right? Younger guys just take the brunt of it. I've seen it at high school, college, and professionally, from other players and from coaches. And so you need to have some thicker skin in those situations.
I was going to say, ish rolls downhill, always has. And it's always going to be the older players looking at the older guys, looking at the younger guys, the older player looking at the younger player. Yeah, since you've been out here the least amount of time, it's obviously your fault, and you'll go back and look at it on tape, and then you won't say anything about it if you're the older player, if you were the one that was at fault. You just sit there, it happened. Yeah, it's over there. It's over and done with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to use the word that I have in my head right now. How pointed are how pointed is the smack these days from older players to younger players? I mean, how is it still the same where when we were all growing up that you mentioned how things roll downhill? Is it different? Is it the same? Is there more of it these days that you get that you witness? How is the trickle down effect of blame that you see these days?
Yeah, I think it's different, and it's different in a better way. I think
Okay.
that there's less of that. I remember when I was a rookie in MLS, like we had a veteran locker room, and there were times where they were hard on rookies, like just absolutely smashing balls at you in a passing drill, knowing that you're not going to take a good touch, and then complaining when you don't take a good touch, right? And I think a lot of that is just kind of like, hey, let me toughen you up and let me show you, like, hey, this happened to me, so hey, f you, I'm going to do it to you and deal with it.
So it was a test. It was like an on the field test, basically.
I think so, because they weren't bad people. They were not bad guys off the field. It's more like, I don't know, just I want to test you and see what the reaction is going to be. Like, do you know your place in this team right now? I put in my time, and so hey, make sure you put in your time before you think you're too good.
And can you handle all of the crap that's thrown at you, like a situation like this, where if a touch is too heavy, if somebody's out of position, how much can you handle, I guess, is probably what's going through my brain in a situation like that. So can you handle me doing this to you? What
Totally.
can you handle me poking you in the sternum? Can you handle me pushing you in the shoulder, knocking you off your pins, that kind of thing?
Yep, totally.
Did you do that? Did you carry on that as well, or were you more analytical in your approaches? Since you were treated at X level by teammates when you started, did you? I imagine it still carried on when you were a pro and had pro years underneath you, but was it less? And did you how deep did you go into that idea?
Yeah, far less. And that's what I'm saying. I think times have changed where there's far less players doing that nowadays. I think that you still need to hold, especially younger players, accountable on and off the field with their actions. But I think there's less of that, hey, let me just test this guy and see how he's going to react. Or just, I don't want to say be a jerk, but I don't know, just not have the same respect to younger players as you do fellow older players. And I get that, you need to earn respect from players, and you do that over time. And so that's why when an older player makes a mistake, he doesn't get as much grief as when a younger player does, right? Because he's earned that respect of, okay, yeah, I know that he made a mistake, but I've also seen his body of work over time versus, hey, this rookie just made a mistake. What the heck's going on?
The emotional capital, I guess, that is attached to being a veteran. When you give them a bit of a wider berth when it comes to mistakes and addressing mistakes and figuring out how to address them in these kinds of situations. Another couple of minutes with Cap here at MF Parkhurst on the 280 character app, at BG Mentoring on the Twitters as well. Look, I can't call it X because it's like, what do you Xing somebody out? That just seems like it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, I have saved this drop on purpose, knowing that there would be times when it would be used, and if I could find it, then I would play it. But apparently, I can't find it. It's like oh, here we go. Here it is. A little ZZ Top never hurt anybody, but I've got like 9,000 drops off to the right-hand side. And it's like, where is it? It was one of the first ones you did, idiot. So it's up high.
Yeah.
So when we talked about the emotions and dealing with emotions and having folks grow in maturity and all these kinds of things. Greg raised a point about the national team last time. And now that there's a new man in charge, Mauricio Pochettino, Greg raised the point that sometimes the U.S. is too nice. Can you be too nice as an athlete out there and still be successful in a team environment? Or do you have to have a little bit of sandpaper in you to succeed? Can you be nice 100% of the time? Can you be a little less nice and still be as successful?
It's tough. It's tough to be. I think you can, but I think it, to a certain extent, you can't be 100% nice. I don't think. And it's funny you say that, John, because I'm watching a lot more NWSL and just women's soccer in general than I ever have. And it's one thing I noticed so quickly, the difference between men and women is their reactions to their teammates and their mistakes, or when they don't receive a pass in front of goal, the celebrations together after a goal. Like they're so much more positive. There's, if a striker shoots and he doesn't pass it to the winger, right? If he doesn't score, the winger's throwing his hands up, or he's saying something 98% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally almost never see it in women's soccer.
You always you're seeing this.
Yeah, or they just let it go. They just literally turn and start running back upfield.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's tough. I played mostly as a nice guy, but I do think that there were times when, and I get what Greg's saying, when you're with the national team and you're just in a different environment, and you're down in Costa Rica and you're playing against Mexico and you're playing in these types of environments, you can't be nice, right? Because they do things and to get under your skin, and the fake things, and yeah, it's just tough. And so no, you can't be so nice. And we've talked about it before, where you can be a little bit different on the field than you are off the field. And so, yeah, I think that sometimes you do need to get to that different place.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you can even be in that different place during a match, where if things dictate an emotional change or an emotional sea change, where you got to dial it up, you've got to bring the sandpaper, you've got to be that fourth line guy in soccer in hockey translated to soccer, where, if you got to drop the gloves a little bit, you got to kind of sit there and push folks. Did you ever have that extra bit of nasty in you? And I mean, it could be in a playoff situation or a national team situation where you had to sit there and go, okay, I've got to be a little different today, personality wise.
Yeah, there's definitely times where I felt like, okay, you have to be a little different today. And usually it's in the bigger games, the tougher environments, the national team games, depending on who the opponent is as well. And again, for me, it was tough because it was like, I was such a thinker out on the field, and it's such a big part of my game, where I don't want to lose that. I don't want to go in the red so much where now I'm not thinking clearly and I'm not playing my own game, right? But I do have to be aggressive in a way that maybe I'm not normally, or just be aware of some different tactics and antics that are going to go out there on the field, and not care as much about the other player on the other side of the field, and those little things that just change a little bit here and there.
See, but you are thinking, though, but because if you're thinking and you understand, okay, I've got to be a little different, there's that level of thought that's attached to it, because you've got your baseline. But then it's like, wait a minute. Okay, I've got that foreknowledge of, okay, I've got to be a little different. And I would think that having that knowledge ahead of time adds that extra dimension to who you are as a player, knowing when to turn it on and turn it off and be a little different than you traditionally are.
For sure.
All right. So now that I've dialed you through all of the emotions of the day, rivalry game with Atlanta United and Nashville coming up this weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, it's awesome. There's going to be a sellout, a big crowd. I'm excited. I mean, yeah, that's a winnable game for me. Nashville they're a good team, but they're beatable for sure. So yeah, I'm expecting, especially with the big crowd, just a really good performance. I just hope it's high octane, high energy, and I hope they give the fans a real reason to come back the following week and the following week after that and after that, because we've missed those sellouts and those big crowds.
No doubt. What's going on with Beyond Goals mentoring? I know that college season's going, high school's getting ready to put names on lists and things. What's going on?
Yeah, things are going really well. And I think the biggest topic right now is the change of college and what's going on there, and the roster sizes and scholarships and how that's affecting kids. And so, there's a lot of change out there. We're all living and learning, just trying to help players through it.
As you do, as always. Thanks for coming by, as you always do. Good luck with Rhode Island. Where's Rhode Island this weekend?
Orange County.
Oh, that's right. You're not flying to Irvine. That's right. You're going to stay up late and watch the game and sit there and nibble your fingernails and throw things at TVs. All right, be good, Cap, and we'll catch up with you next time.
See you, John.
There we go. Michael Parkhurst. He puts up with all of my crap on a biweekly basis. He and Greg, they really do put up with me, because traditionally what I'll do is I'll have an idea about where to go in the door, and then they'll open a door and open a door and open a door and open a door. So traditionally it's like I have an idea and then we'll just go down a road, and they really do put up with me, but it's really cool that they get to come on and hang out and talk about what's going on at Beyond Goals Mentoring, and do that every time that they're available when they're not traveling the planet and trying to help everybody out on the next level. All right.